Hey guys, welcome to Telltale. I'm Emily.
I'm Greg.
And today we are going to be taking another look at another Lovecraft short story. This one is The Doom That Came to Sarnath.
Yep.
Alright. I like this one. I read it, I had to reread it because, I had read this over 2 years ago now when I was working my way through all of Lovecraft. So I was like, last night I did a quick skim read. Make sure I remembered everything.
Uh-huh. Now, this is part of Lovecraft's dream cycle.
Yes.
And I think it's only the second or third in the dream cycle.
Yeah, I feel like we haven't done a lot of the dream cycle yet.
But he wrote most of those before he wrote Cthulhu Mythos. So this was published in June of 1920 in a magazine called The Scot.
Yes.
Know nothing about that magazine. And
I have a nice collection that tells me all that info too, which is really nice.
Oh, cool.
It's a digital version. I bought it on, I want to say Amazon or something for $1, but it was really nice.
Yeah, the book I have, the new annotated H.P. Lovecraft.
It's beautiful.
Which is very nice and available at Barnes & Noble.
Yes, I love.
And this one has notes like that, but I can't remember what they had to say about the Doom That Came to Sarnath. I just remember what I read.
Yeah. That's the important part.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, well, that's really what we're doing this whole series of videos for, is to talk about the reading experience of this stuff. We tell a little of the history, but it's not about being an English class. It's about whether or not it's enjoyable to read.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's all I got to introduce it. You want to say what it's about? Yeah,
so this is kind of written from a person, not necessarily recounting the tale, having been there, but kind of a historical sounding written piece of someone writing down and documenting this is what happened. So it comes across, I think, at first a little dry, but the story is so intriguing, and Lovecraft is so good at crafting words that it has a really great sound, and it is very much horror. So, it begins with...
He loves to craft words.
Yeah, he loves to craft words. And maybe paper snowflakes and origami. We don't know. You never know. But, so the story begins kind of describing this ancient group of basically blobby fish people who live on the edge of this lake and worship this very specific fish god who is a big green stone idol. I shouldn't say big. A fairly sizable, but not too large green stone idol in their temples. And they share...
seems to be a theme with Lovecraft, is fish monsters.
Yeah.
Because, of course, Cthulhu comes out of the ocean, and Dagon is in the ocean. And what story was it where that guy was stranded on an island, and he saw in this chasm, and there were these statues of fish monsters? It was one we just read. I can't remember the title, though.
Yeah. And then, Innsmouth, when we get to Innsmouth.
Yeah, we will be getting into a lot more.
But it's
fish people.
The ocean is the perfect place for a horror story and things from the deep to come from. Yeah. I think, because it is still so unexplored even to this day with all our modern technology. But these guys aren't necessarily oceanic. These guys are part of, share this lake with this other great, magnificent city. And over time, this magnificent city, the people who live in it, just keep seeing these weird blob people. And they're like,
kill them.
Kill it's because they're different, and they creep us out, and who knows what they're up to, and their guttural sounds are disturbing, and we'll never have anything in common with them. So let's, they're so ancient and primitive, they need to die, essentially, was their rationale. Kill it because it's different. So they do so, and they successfully kill all of these creatures. They shove their bodies in the lake with poles, because they don't want to touch them because they're slimy and gross. And then they steal their little idol and put it in one of their temples. But the very next day, their temple priest is found dead, struck by horror to death, and the statue of the god of these ancient people is gone. So, they're and the priest has written doom, scrawled doom, on the floor, either in his own blood or something. I don't know. It never really specifies how he scrawled doom, if it was in the dust or what. But somehow he manages to write doom on the floor as he's dying.
Mm-hmm.
So 1,000 years go by. And they recount how this great city of Sarnath ends up becoming this beautiful metropolitan, like, high arts, gorgeous architecture, basically this enormous utopia. And everybody kind of, like, forgets about the doom scrolled on the floor and the priest who was struck dead after the killing of, what were they, the Ibes or whatever I think they were called?
Can't remember what they were called.
The fish people.
Yeah.
And then one day, exactly 1,000 years to the date, when they're throwing a big feast of having killed off this entire ancient, creepy neighbor of theirs across the lake, they all resurrect and go through the city. Everyone's struck with madness. Those who aren't struck with madness are killed. And the rest who are, survive just flee.
Mm-hmm.
The end.
Yeah.
Essentially. Like, Sarnath literally is doomed because these fish people come back and knock them all off or freak them all out so bad. And there was, like, some visitors from other kingdoms and nations and stuff who were there, too, who were also struck or killed or whatever. So it didn't just happen to Sarnath, it just happened to everyone who was at Sarnath, including other nationalities and other kingdoms, for this big celebration. So... caused a international affair of crazy.
Yeah.
All by primitive fish people.
Yep. And this is a very different kind of story because, like you say, it's written more like an historical document than an actual story.
Yeah.
So you don't really get characters.
Yeah. You have some names dropped,
really
but...
well, you have narrative, but you don't really have action.
Yeah.
And so it's not like a typical story or novel. It's more like an Encyclopedia Britannica entry.
Yeah, it really is. Where it's very factual, but it's still written in such a way where it's like... There is still this sense of dread as you're reading it, just because of the way the prose and the language that is used as it's being documented. But yes, this is very... It's like reading a chapter of the Bible, in my opinion, where you just get the information or whatever, and you don't really get more than that.
Yeah, it is exactly like reading the Bible, because the Bible has a lot of passages like that where it's just description of what went on.
And then the city crumbled. Jericho crumbled as they all shouted. You know, that kind of stuff.
And the problem with writing something that way is that the reader... My opinion is that as the reader, you're left wishing for a lot more detail, a lot more meat.
Yes.
To this story. I mean, it covers 1,000 years, and there's all these cool things going on. It could have a lot more. This could be a 1,000-page book.
Yeah, it really could be.
There's that much story there, but it's all just kind of
presented to you in a short story.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if that's all Lovecraft had patience for, because all he wrote was short stories or very short novelette kind of things. They were very small and very short, so I'm like, maybe he was just super impatient and just like, story's done. It's perfect. Next one.
That's possible.
Honestly, because I tend to be that way myself. When I write, I've written a lot of poems and short stories, but when it comes to longer stuff, I'm like, alright, now I'm bored of these guys. Let's move on. So I'm like, maybe we have that in common.
Or you can't help but wonder if this started out really as a draft for a story, and then he thought, I'll just send it to a magazine.
Yeah. Might as well just toss it out there.
Need some grocery money this week. Send this draft,
this
outline to a magazine.
I kind of wish I knew the circumstances a little more, because that would be kind of funny. Yeah. They're kind of fun to know. But I digress. It is very dry. Myself, I love dry literature. Okay. Like, Lord of the Rings was great. The Hobbit was great. The Silmarillion, though. I freaking loved the Silmarillion.
Yeah, where most people have a real
I
hard
know.
time with it because it's not
It's
really
so textbook
a narrative.
feeling. Like you feel like you're reading the Bible again. But it's one of those things.
And that's how Tolkien intended it, really.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't,
Yes.
He intended it. That was all his notes for building his world. It wasn't a novel.
Yes, it was meant to be the textbook, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And which I think is great. But I found that fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
And so this kind of thing is very fascinating to me. But I understand that this is not the type of thing that most people enjoy reading.
No.
I find old textbooks and read them for fun. Like, I'm disgusting. It's just, ugh. But yeah, it's definitely... I wouldn't say this is a top tale for a Lovecraft.
I wouldn't either. I think we've read better Lovecraft already.
Definitely. But I feel like this sets the tone for a lot of the Dreamworld stuff coming.
If nothing else, it's just interesting for the cities and the fish people and the Doom. And
Yes, his descriptions are beautiful and vivid. And it's like you could literally feel like you're watching them build before you over the course of 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fast track.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is definitely... I also thought it was super interesting because H.P. Lovecraft is a product of his time and is super racist. Like, he's racist.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a part of me that's like, you know, it's really unusual for him to write a kill it 'cause it's different story, only to have them rise up and kill off this magnificent city that has done so much and has been the superior race for so long. So I'm wondering...
There's
this
in his
piece
fiction. I've noticed that a couple times before where, yeah, he's super racist, but then you read these stories which basically are anti-racist, if you want to analyze
Yeah, it's so interesting. Where you're caught in this conflict between, like, is he just doing it for the sake of story? Is he processing what he feels the civil rights movement building momentum is doing? Is he not as racist as we once thought? We don't know. We don't get to know.
But I'm trying to say if you don't kill absolutely everyone and burn them into ashes, they'll come back and get you.
Maybe their culture will find a way to come rise up again because of their gods and whatever. I don't know. I don't know what if this was just purely for the sake of writing a fantasy, or if there's like 10% of something is him coming to terms with things going on politically.
Yeah.
And during this time. I don't know. But it's just so interesting because he is that very kill it because it's different. But the thing that keeps getting killed because it's different comes back and destroys what killed it in the first place. Mm-hmm. So I keep having these weird conflicts of like, yeah, I know you're super racist, but like...
Yeah, this comes off as
you being like... Maybe it's still racist, though, because you're sitting there and he's like, he's afraid they're gonna come back and kill us. I don't know. I just think it's really interesting, the choice of his subject matter and the way he kind of takes these underdogs and makes them so much more. It's just so interesting. Like, I wish I could get in his head, but also I don't want to be there. This is enough for me. It's like, I wish he was alive so I could ask the question. But then again, I don't think that would go so well.
No.
But yeah.
Right. So, what is the next Lovecraft?
Yes, what is it indeed?
Let me consult the
scrolls.
Oh, Poetry and the Gods.
Oh, yes.
That's our next H.P. Lovecraft from September of 1920, 3 months ahead.
If I remember that one right, that's a bit longer.
I didn't look.
I'll have to double check.
Still a short story. Still considered a short story, but it could be a little bit
It could be. I'm remembering the wrong thing, too.
Doom That Came to Sarnath was very short.
Yeah, that was a very quick read.
Yep.
But it was delightful. It's still I think it's a good intro, especially into this dreamland as we kind of progress into it.
Yeah.
It shows you the kind of lifestyles that frequently occur in the story. There's a lot of great, massive cities that are trying to reflect Sarnath and what it once was.
And it has all of Lovecraft's typical themes, the ancient cities, the fish gods.
Yeah. But the nice thing about Dreamland is, like, cities come back. in stories. So you kind of repeat places you've been
And
through the
statues
dream.
come alive and kill people.
It's delightful.
Yeah. It's typical Lovecraft.
Yep, for sure. But it's fun. So,
Uh-huh.
there we go. All right.
So onward to the next Lovecraft, and that's all we have for this video. Like us and subscribe us and leave comments. Have you read The Doom That Came to Sarnath? What do you think? What do you think of it? Are we out of our minds? Do you agree with us? Leave your thoughts. We want to hear from you too. And come back and watch more.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Bye.
Bye.